Well, hello and welcome to everyone tonight. I'm Amy Warner, the principal of École Varennes, and many of us have met over the last couple of months, but still getting to know new faces. So feel free afterwards to come up and introduce yourself to me. I'm still getting to meet families without masks. And so I love to take the opportunity just to say hello and get to know which lovely child you might be attached to or children. So I invite you to stop by and say hello to either myself as well as to our vice principal, Madame Laurent, who also helped facilitate this really amazing evening. So we did it a little bit untraditional family night. Our first family night was entirely focused on parents and children together. And tonight we wanted to share a meal with you and build community through that. And then also take this opportunity to have kids come in for you guys to walk around the school, get to see the building, get familiar with all the spaces your kids occupy over the course of the school day. So we want to thank you and welcome you today to this consultation. So the kids have activities organized by our family center and our community liaison worker who are really a hub in our school and in our community. So we want to extend thanks to them. Thanks as well to Mr. Hingham, who's organized all things technology, Mr. Hardman, who's supported him. We'd like to welcome Jeff Anderson, our assistant superintendent, as well as several important members of our community. So tonight we have here amongst us Jamie Moses, we have Brian Mays, Dougal Lamont is online, I believe, trustees Daddy Nemeth, Chris Sigurdsson, Francine Champagne, and Ryan Palmquist are also with us today. So thank you so much for coming out and sharing this important consultative process with all of us. To start, I really want to take the opportunity to read our land acknowledgement. Land acknowledgement is something that we've been working on at École Varennes, so this is in evolution. Tonight I'm reading the Louis Riel School Division land acknowledgement, but over the course of the next couple of months, our students have been, they've already started the process of researching land acknowledgements and building their own for their classroom so that it's authentic and we deliver and say our words with meaning. So it's very important to all of us. But tonight, until that process is done, where we might have kids sharing our land acknowledgement, tonight I'll read it. The Louis Riel School Division brings together a community of schools on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe, Inuit, and Dakota. Our division is located on the homeland of the Red River Métis. We recognize that Manitoba is also the traditional land of the Anishinaabe. We respect the treaties made on this land and acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past and present. We dedicate ourselves to authentic alliances with Indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and cooperation. So thank you for listening. I normally do this in French, so it's very rare that we have to do things in different languages all the time so we can empathize with our kids. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Anderson, and I thank you again all for being here this evening.
Thank you very much, Amy, and good evening, everyone. Bonsoir. Welcome. Thank you for coming. It is great to see such a wonderful turnout for this consultation event. We are going to run through a program that should take us about an hour with opportunity as well for you to ask some questions, find out more about the process and what we have planned. So we're going to be walking you through the timeline of this process, describing what exactly it is we're looking at tonight. So some important definitions so that we understand what we are talking about and what we are not talking about, as well as looking at, and I thought for sure more people would be coming up and peering at these exciting designs, but we'll be looking at these designs. Our architects are here this evening and we'll be walking us through. And then we'll be looking at what the next steps of the process are and providing you the chance to give some feedback to help us design a new École Varennes. So why we are here is because over the summer we had, last spring we had a building condition assessment conducted. And what this is, they hired a group of contractors in and look at what work needs to be done in this school over the next several years. So buildings are always in need of renovations, ongoing changes to keep them functional. And looking at École Varennes, what are the projects in the next few years that are going to need to be done? Of course, if there's anything that needs to be done right now, it's being done right now. Don't worry about that. So this building is safe and habitable. It is comfortable for students and staff to work in. But over the long time, what the contractors told us essentially is you could spend all of this money trying to retrofit this building and maintain it and bring it up to current standards, or for an equivalent amount of money, you could build a new school. So this was work that our school board had commissioned, and based on the recommendation of the consultants, has recommended that we explore what are the possibilities for a new school that could be constructed here to serve the École Varennes community. Something that I would also like to point out is that there has not been a new school in an existing community in Winnipeg for a very long time. Most of the new schools that you're familiar with are being constructed in new suburbs. River Park South, the schools there were all constructed as it was developed. Similarly, a new school in Island Lakes, a new school in Sage Creek. But existing neighborhoods have not seen a new school, not just in Louis School Division, but anywhere in Winnipeg for about 20 years, according to our research. And what this means is that we're really experiencing an infrastructure deficit in the older parts of our city. And if we want our city to continue to be habitable, we want our city to be vibrant, we need to make investments in existing communities as well. And we certainly see this as a very significant investment in this part of Louis School Division. And of course, I also need to present to you the caveat that the Louis Riel School Division isn't in charge of deciding whether or not a new school gets constructed. This is a decision that comes from the provincial government. So the work that we're doing right now, the board has said, would you please look into options? What are some possibilities? What is a ballpark figure that this might cost? So that that can be taken to the provincial government and say, hey, this is why we need a new school. This is what we're envisioning. And this is how much approximately it would cost. Can we have approval? So that is, I don't want you to think that the plans you're going to see tonight have already been approved provincially. This is part of our process for seeking that approval from them. In terms of milestones, we are meeting here this evening. We're going to be continuing our consultation with you, the community, the broader community, and with our government officials over the coming months. And we're looking to have a finalized option come mid to late January. So you can see there are three high-level designs here this evening. We're looking to get feedback, and based on what you will tell us, narrow that down to one option. And it doesn't have to be one of these exact options. It can be one of these options with changes that you would recommend this evening. Oh, I like option 2, but, and then the architects will take that information away and make enhancements. So we're looking to update our capital request with the province in April. That is sort of a standing process date when the province seeks a standard request. And then we will wait for an announcement and hope that that comes in May. You'll see that anticipate an announcement. That begins in May, and we hope it doesn't go on for long after that, but that's when we're going to begin the anticipation process. Now, I would like to introduce two incredibly talented architects who have been working with us. We have this evening Christina Lee and Monica Giesbrecht. Christina is with Number 10 Architecture Group, and Monica is with HTFC. And both of these firms have done work with the school division in the past. Number 10, incidentally, was the lead architect for the building at École Sage Creek School. HTFC has done work at École Varennes in the past as well, consulting on playground projects and enhancements that have been done over many years here. So they have a long-standing relationship with this site itself. So without further ado, I would like to pass it off to Christina and Jonathan.
Thank you very much. So I think what we'll do is maybe start off with giving a few little definitions about what the process we've been going through. And Jeff did a great. Am I not? I'm loud naturally, so just let me know if I'm speaking too loud. But just to go over the process that we went through. So Jeff did a really great job of explaining where we are, where the school division is in the process of trying to get a new school. So essentially what we're doing is a functional programming exercise, a concept design. So typically when a new school is given out by awarded by the province, there's a program that's given that outlines all the spaces that would be required for that school based on the student population. So for a school of 600 students, for example, you sort of get a shopping list of spaces that would be allocated to that school. So we use that as a starting point for where we build up what that school may look like through consultation with the school division, the community, the school community. We learn a little bit more about what makes that school unique, and then we sort of develop the program from there. So that ends up being what we're starting with, the building blocks per se. So that's what we call our functional programming and space planning exercise. In this situation, what we've done is we've sort of taken a look at what you have here, but more importantly, we've taken a look at if this was a new school going anywhere else in the city, what would that same population be getting as far as space? So that was our starting point. So we have a kit of parts of 24 classrooms, a gym of a certain size, and we started laying them on the site. What we're really trying to do is test out different approaches to how that building is laid out. It's really just a high-level look at what are the possibilities. Coming onto an existing site, Monica is going to talk about your site a lot. The architecture is sort of a response to that. So what's really unique about coming onto a site like this is that it's an existing situation. There's traffic considerations to be taken into account. There's an existing community around. When we built Sage Creek, there were no houses around. We consulted with the community, but we didn't even know how it was going to operate because it wasn't there. This is a well-integrated community. You guys know way better than we do. So we're really trying to just test some ideas and get your feedback. So we're going to talk about where the entry is. We're going to talk about where the common spaces are, where the volume is, what's the difference between a 2-story school and a 3-story school, and what that does to your site. So those are the conversations that we're going to have as we kind of walk through the options. Okay, Taylor, could you advance to the next slide? Taylor.
Do you want the site analysis? It should be up there. It might just be slow.
one option. And we're gonna go back and forth and talk about the site and the architecture that responds to that. So that's how we'll sort of walk through. But first we'll maybe get it over. I'm gonna, I've been told to hold the microphone straight on my face, so it's not working. It's weird, you actually can't hear if it works while you're standing. Is it working? Just wave at me. Okay, great. Thanks for having us tonight. As Christina noted, you know way more about this school than we do. So the site analysis you see above, and I'm very sorry, the air photo is really not showing up on the screen, but it would show up on the plans over here. It's just an assessment of the really unique site you have. So you have really big positives and really big challenges. So the really big positive is that you're in an established neighborhood with really good neighbors and really nice, dense fabric where, you know, walking to school is a possibility, where in some other new subdivisions, it's really not. The challenge is you have a very narrow lot with a street frontage on a major street that I know you all know presents all kinds of challenges, especially to children crossing. And then, you know, you're bound on two other sides by a back lane where you have neighbors who may not want a bunch of traffic on the back lane. In addition to that, you have Varennes Avenue where, you know, you can have parent drop off and pick up drop off in an existing parking lot. And we have been told what that existing parking lot can look like in the morning. We've been told about the various routing systems you've developed to take care of circulation on the site. And it, you know, I won't lie to you, super challenging site design. So when you see the three options, we have thought about this sideways, backwards, and upside down. And these are the best three choices that we can come up with different ideas. I should also note that one of the nice things we have is a really mature playground and really beautiful vegetation and a school community that invests in outdoor learning. And so we don't want to lose that. But in order to build the new school, we need to keep your old school running. So all the options you see tonight, the school is pushed towards St. Mary's because there is no other way for us to build the new school and keep this school running, so kids have somewhere to go, without putting the building in that location. So in case you're wondering why we didn't do an option where the school's on the other end, that's why. The last thing I want to leave with you is that we have had very preliminary conversations with the city, because we were trying to think about where you could access the site and what the best place for cars to drop off and for people to park and for pedestrians and vehicles to be separated clearly is, how you fit your 8 buses a day that show up, and all of those things. And in fact, I would say to Jeff, and I have, you've done pretty good just kind of gerrymandering it, but we want to do a little bit better. The city's answer when we asked them if we could use St. Mary's was absolutely not. So it is an arterial street. You cannot loop through, you cannot drop off, but you might be able to enter or exit, but only one way. So the options you see tonight are all based on that feedback from the city. Okay? Does anyone have any other questions about the site analysis or anything I didn't cover? I'm going to let Jeff answer that.
That's a great question, thanks. And we are looking at projected population. So when we look at this neighborhood that École serves, it goes from Bishop Brandon up to Carrière and from the St. River over to the Red River north of Norbury and as far as St. Mary's south of Norbury. So this is, as mentioned, an established neighborhood. It's also a neighborhood where we're starting to see a lot of turnover. So many retired folks are moving away, younger families are buying their homes. We're seeing a lot of new development occurring as well, where some smaller homes are being taken down and much larger homes being put up. So we are already seeing growth in population in this neighborhood, and that is expected to continue over the coming years which is why we're aiming for a population of 600.
Okay, so I figured out. Okay. Perfect, thank you. So option one. So now I'm going to walk through the different options. Like I said, and then Monica will respond and talk about the site circulation and the site response. So we've looked at 3 different options. And like I said, we're looking at different program areas that are, each option has the same kit of parts, essentially. So you're looking at 24 classrooms. That includes a science classroom and art classroom. You've got a gym. You've got what we call the student commons, which is really the heart of the school. That's often paired together with the public spaces like the media center and the library. I know the family center is really important to the school community. Student services, things that are all very sort of public and part of the community part of the school is really at the heart. So you'll see that in yellow. We showed that in yellow along with the circulation. We kind of think of those together. It's sort of the idea that learning is everywhere. The idea that the students can spill out of the classrooms and work in the hallways like we used to in the tiny little hallways, so we're just trying to make that more facilitated and more habitable. So that's sort of where we leave those spaces together. But so the yellow where you're seeing is that's those types of spaces, like the student commons. If you were in Sage Creek, when it first opened, it was sort of a nice, open, public, welcoming space, and that's intended really to just bring the community in. So this first option is testing the idea of an entry off of St. Mary's. Testing the idea of an entry off St. Mary's. That doesn't necessarily mean that vehicular. So Monica will talk about the circulation on the site, but this is very good. So this is one of the options that is, it's a 3-story option. So we're stacking all the classrooms. That's the pink that you're seeing with the red. Showing very much red. So those are classrooms stacked on top of each other. That, like Monica mentioned, the site is quite narrow and tight. So we're trying to be as efficient as we can with the building in order to allow you to keep much of the space, the green space as you can. We know you need to circulate through. We know you need parking. You need play space. So you can achieve that through 3 stories of classrooms. There's no reason why. I think 2, even 3. We've got a nice and efficient footprint. The top left-hand corner is kind of a peach color. That's the daycare. So with each school, there's a daycare attached. That will have its own pick-up and drop-off area. And your administration and your sort of support services are shown in blue. So this shows your sort of welcoming entry. It gives you a street front presence off of St. Mary's, but it has kind of all the business in the back. So all of your play areas and stuff are on the east side, but it gives you a really nice street presence off of St. Mary's. And then the green is all the areas related to the gym. So what we're in now, your support spaces, your change rooms, your allocated purpose space. So that's usually see itself as either a second gym. It could be a music space, a gathering space. Look at that in a variety of different ways. And the other thing that's really interesting about this site is that there's not really a front door. Like there will be a front door, but you enter it, you won't come at it from different ends. So you don't want it to feel like a back door. So if you're coming from the east from Varennes, you have an entry off from the east, you have an entry off the south, but your main entry, your main presence is on the street is what's the areas. Good. I'm just going to continue on. So what we also did is we just extruded these volumes just to give you a sense of what that looks like. A 3-story classroom, a 3-story building sounds high. So we just wanted to. Thank you, Taylor. We'll get the story, I promise. With the third option, there we go. All right, so the idea is that, again, very high level concept. We just want to give you an idea of what this actually would look like on the site. But 3-story classrooms, that common space could be double or triple height space. So that's how you negotiate your way up to the third story, but it allows you to potentially bring some light into that space. And then the gym, like I said, the gym showing on the right-hand side, and then maybe an idea of what it could look like off of St. Mary's Street. So you can get a bit more of a presence, more of a formal entry, a bit more of a street. No, we're not. We're totally sorry, Taylor, we need you to go back. Thanks.
So in thinking about the site development, and the building didn't come before the site, or the site before the building, there was a lot of just trying to figure it out together so it all fits. We really tried to figure out a way to come at it from all directions, as Christina said, but also a way to provide you with a front yard facing St. Mary's, and then as much green space at the other end of the site as possible, while providing you the optimal amount of parking. And we can talk about where there's too much or too little for this school, and considering that bus drop off. So in this option, you would come down Regal, go up St. Thomas, if you're dropping off kids with a car, and you would drop off where you currently have your bus drop off right now. So that's where the parents go in a one-way loop. I should point out that we tried really hard to stay off the back. So all the circulation is actually within your school site, so you are being good neighbors. So if you're coming, you turn left and you drop off, and there's a main entry. You can see in the yellow portion of the school with a little arrow if you're dropping off. If you're walking to school, you can walk anywhere where there's a gray area. So there are paths from every angle that you could come to the school to. So you're trying to make it as permeable as possible. If you're coming by bus, the bus also comes up St. Thomas, but it has its own pickup drop-off loop that's dedicated to buses. So that's the square with the circle in it in the middle. Can the buses and the cars be swapped in this option? Sure. Like if you think the cars work better inside than the buses out, we can flip that. But we wanted to try an option where the buses were really far into the site, very safe. Yeah, I wish I had a cursor to show you. I'm sorry. And then staff would be coming down Varennes on the east side, and they would have dedicated access to a parking lot in this case. Visitors could park in the pickup drop-off for the day, just when pickup drop-off is not happening. And the big kind of differentiator of this option for cars is up on the north side, to the top of the drawing. You'll see an access lane from St. Mary's, and that is a one-way in, drop-off, dedicated, no congestion, no cross purposes for the daycare. So the daycare actually has parents able to drop off without congestion with parents for the school. It also has a little parking lot at the top for the daycare staff. So this is the only option where those two things aren't together. What that creates is that you exit through the back lane and back out to the north. So it's that kind of one-way loop in this space. What is, and I don't want to say left, the way that it's organized in this case is the daycare yard, the play yard, is up in the corner by the peach block for the daycare, and it's its own dedicated daycare space. It could also be used by kindergarten, we've talked about, so like age groups that share it. In the bottom left-hand corner of the drawing is an entry plaza or space. That's an outdoor learning environment. That could be a forest that you walk through to the front of the school, that kind of replaces lots of the things you're going to lose. That is a really good way to filter and welcome people into the school. And then in this option, your active play structures and your field and your basketball are all on the east side of the school. This is the only option where you actually get to keep the play structures you have in the spots they're in. They don't need to move. So in the other ones, we would have to move those around or get new ones. That may be a pro, that might be a con. It's just something to remember in this case.
All right, go on to the second option. All right, so this is the one option where we show a two-story school. So you'll see the footprint is a lot bigger. It's takes a lot more of the site. So it's a sacrifice that's made, but we wanted to test it out just to see what it would look like on the site. But as you can see, to get that many students, so 600 student school, again, I'm referencing back to Sage Creek, because that's what it was when we opened, or when the school opened. It was a 600 student school. So similar scale, that's a 2-story school, very similar floor plan, but he wanted to test that just to see what it would look like. So again, the red are 2 classroom things, very similar, they're stacked, with the student commons in the center, the yellow. And then we have some practical art spaces if you sort of move. If you kind of move to the right of one of the classroom rings, between that and the gym, we have practical arts, so it has access off of the parking lot to the north. And then administration in the blue on the south side. So this is one example as well, where you're entering the main entry on this option is actually off of the south. So the front door is off of the front, is off of the south. So like Monica said, we're not using the back lane, we're creating our own sort of entry drop-off area, but we are orienting the school in the situation to face that way. The challenge with that footprint is because the site's so narrow, we really have to. We sort of have to go north or south as the entry because it's really narrow. So, but what this does do is allow for, again, entries off of each side. The gym is shown in green, and the daycare in this situation is shown in the southeast corner of the school. So again, you don't have a dedicated drop-off parking, but you do have access to the daycare right off the main entry of the school. Taylor, can you go to the next slide, please? So again, this is just a 3-dimensional view of what that massing models. There's really not a whole lot of architectural detail. We're just testing what it looks like. But you can see the scale is a little lower, obviously, it's a little lower. But still opportunity to pop up that student commons, for example, to bring light in. It sort of matches the volume of the gym. And then again, for the lower volumes of the kindergarten classroom, I don't think I mentioned in the plan, which is just off the entry. So, and close to the daycare administration. So, Taylor, if you could go back one, I don't think we talked about the site.
So this option, as Christina said, is challenging because of how big the school footprint is. This one gets you, I'm going to start with the circulation. The parent drop-off is in the spot where the buses are again, but the buses are coming off of Varennes and snaking through along the south side of the site, so that you can get all 7 or 8 of them in at once, dropping off right into a field, which is very similar to what you have that we hear works very well today. And so the kids are safe, kind of getting out into a green space. Off Varennes, you turn right into a large parking lot that would be shared for all staff, and staff would have a separate entry into the school from that end, so they don't have to walk all the way around. This parking lot is a total of 107 cars. Probably don't need as many as those. I think we could have a good discussion about what the right number of cars for the school is. We've had that discussion, and we're looking for you to give us feedback. You know, we are used to doing large subdivision schools where everyone wants to drive, which drives us crazy. So if you don't all want to drive, less parking would be great because of the size of the site. The challenge with this particular option is that you really divide the playground into tiers. So on the St. Mary's side, you have early years play zones, play structures, which are the peach circles or tan-colored circles. You have outdoor learning environment. It's all fenced in this case. So the first option, the bottom corner, was open, no fence. This one is all fenced in, like what you have now, which changes how it feels. And then on the east side, next to the daycare, just right east of the daycare, you have an enclosed daycare yard. You have really nice sort of public shared spaces facing south where you drop off, so that kind of becomes a plaza space for you. And then you have the tiniest field out of all 3 options in this option. So it's a very small lawn. and a full-size basketball court. So the other thing you need to ask yourself is which one of those do you need? Did you do a half basketball court for your population? We hear your neighborhood really loves the basketball court. So those are the kinds of things you have to decide as part of this option. I think one of the things we talked about is that recess can be managed, but you would probably want to flip the kids between the two sides to get the experience of this option. So that's something to keep in mind, is that they're not all coming out and getting all the things they need in one place.
All right, so on to the third option. So option 3 is really an iteration of option 1. To be honest, it's another 3-story design where the classrooms are staffed with 3 stories. The rest of it are not, with the exception of the commons that gets it up and down in that 3-story volume. What this does is this just flips the daycare. So in option 1, your daycare was at the northwest corner. This sort of mirrors that, puts it down on the south side. So like Monica had mentioned on the first option, your daycare playground is up in that north corner, the northwest corner. This one brings that down. So it's a little bit sort of a nice adjacency. It's nice open to the south, which is always a nice job all year round. And again, this one has the entry off of the south side. So there's a little bit of a difference. Monica's going to talk in more detail about the site. This is sort of the significant pieces. Another difference here is that the gym is to the north. So that's what sort of blocks off to the north, and the classrooms kind of span off to the east. Actually, if we can go to the 3D. Perfect. So there you go. Just an example of where that commons almost acts like we're putting it in more linear form. This floor plan actually has the most square footage because the commons is a little bit larger than the other options. Those are things we'll sort out down the road. We're really just looking at high level concepts of what this could look like. So it's just a concept at this point. But you can see sort of the volume, the main volume of that 3-story piece is off to the east, allowing access from the classroom straight out to the play areas. All right.
It does get faster and faster as you go.
Yeah.
Can you go back to the plan?
She is. Oh, we just didn't do a question. Oh, good.
Okay, so this last option has a few special features included that could be included in the other options, but this is the one where the building massing had suggested these. So this one has the parent drop off in the same location in all 3 options. So you're still coming out of St. Thomas and dropping off to the left. But because of the daycare location, you have a dedicated parent pickup drop off for the daycare right beyond the parent drop off for the school. So there's a little, it almost looks like an ellipse on the left southwest corner of the site. And in this option, you are exiting onto St. Mary's. So they've, as I said, the city will allow us to do one, but not both. So we could actually exit onto St. Mary's in this location. So one of the challenges with this one is that the daycare, it's better than option 2, but you're still sharing the same lane to drop off school kids and the daycare kids in the morning, but they're separated. And we have done this at other schools with good success. So kind of positive. The buses are still coming down Varennes and coming through the south side of the site and out St. Thomas. And you'll notice the parking has been bumped up to the top and made only 1 bay wide, and it's 87 stalls. So it's less parking than the other option to open up the amount of green space we have. So in this option at the front, you have an outdoor learning space. So that's where you would do outdoor learning activities, and it functions as a welcoming entry plaza. And then to the top of that, you see a triangle that has these circles and some lines across it. The pink block next to that is your maker spaces. It's your interior practical arts spaces. So we again have done this with great success at Old Sage Creek, actually, where we opened up the maker space outside so kids could actually make things in an outdoor kind of courtyard space or maker space. That's what that triangle is in this option. And then on the south end of the site, because you have another prominent entry with a parent drop-off, you have more sort of outdoor learning opportunity, maybe even an edible landscape or a garden. And all the play structures are then lined up along the south side, where you might wait for the bus to pick you up or drop you off in the plane. And the corner where the buses kind of come around is designed perfectly for a small retaining wall that you can even integrate like landform back into your playground so that they firm, because you're losing those things from your current playground. In this option, we have split up the basketball court. This is the only option where you don't get a full court. You get 2 half courts, which are in the middle, just to the east of the pink block. And this is, you know, gives you a mini soccer field. That's about as big a soccer field as you get. Now, can you trade off some of the play structures for more field? Can you remove some hill? Like all those things can go back and forth. And so I think before we finish talking about the options, I think we should let you know that even though we pick an option that we kind of think we might want to head towards now, this option is only to provide a preliminary price and idea to government that they can fund. So once they fund this, there's an entire process that follows. That is schematic design, which is like really thinking about this carefully. And you will have input through all those phases of design until you go to construction. So if you provide comments and the option we go to government with isn't exactly what you wanted, this is not your last opportunity. You're going to have many others after May, hopefully, when the government gives the school division the money and makes this an official project to have input. We're doing this, and we think that the school division is very smart to do this. No other school division is doing it quite like this, because they have figured out that if they go to the province with an ask and they know what they're asking for, they're way more likely to have success. So that's why this is a free study.
Very good, thank you very much. And Taylor, if I can get you to advance to the next steps, please. So we want to let you know what is the road ahead from here. We are looking at having students involved in the conversation, having classroom teachers sharing designs, getting ideas from students, to have them have their voice heard in this phase of the process. But we will continue to have consultations through staff meetings and PAC meetings, and we are looking to have you all back here again in mid to late January to look at a finalized option and cost estimate. And we are also going to be looking at inviting feedback from you. So you will see that there is a QR code here. And I know that these designs were not the easiest to see on the screen. So the designs are also presented online. So you will be able to zoom in on parts that you couldn't see as well as you would like. And we're certainly available for questions now. And the drawings that are on display at the front, we'll spread them out a little bit more, and they will be available for you to come and have a closer look. So on that, are there any questions? And I'm just going to bring the mic around so that folks that are online can hear as well.
Is there a possibility for the park to save space? Is that an option?
Yes, but the province does not fund that, so the school division would have to fund the parking. You guys all hear me, or should I repeat it? Oh, so the answer is yes, the parking, even at level 1 where you split the parking and maybe it goes underground, is totally possible. It's expensive, and the province will not fund that. So it have to be funded by the school.
Maybe more data.
I'm not sure what the size of the daycare is projected in these provincial formulas.
I have to be honest, I don't know exactly what they would award either. So I think that great, yeah. So we modeled it very similarly after what was at Sage Creek. I believe that was 51 spots. Or 71, I don't know off the top of my head, but you could definitely get that information for you. But it's a formula that's based on, again, by the demographics and whoever is the provider for that.
For more spots?
Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah.
Hi, thank you. So I saw between 80 and over 100 parking spots on the site. How many teachers or staff work at École now or potentially in the future?
Yeah, so the projection is 79 faculty, 15 casual staff, plus the staff for the daycare. So the requirement comes to something like 50 stalls altogether if you consider the daycare. So we provided more because the discussion was you need more, and you're always overrun, but it could be half that if you wanted it.
I understand. Was any of that based on, because I understand the, like there wouldn't be any students arriving here, but who would be needing parking? Parents dropping them off would be leaving with, so as the entire over 100 parking spots all intended for staff?
Well, staff and visitors and evening use. So we were told you don't have enough parking. And so this was the reaction to that. The zoning requirement would be about 50.
Okay, is that a city of Winnipeg requirement?
Yeah, so we've done the math based on the occupancy and the zoning. The parking spots are now. I think we have 30. Sorry, Lance, I feel bad. 30 plus 6 that are reserved. Like you don't have a lot of stalls. You have a very inefficient parking lot with a really wide lane down the middle and stalls only on either side. And you're using your parking lot as a pickup drop off. Like it's not fantastic.
So the decision would be to take about half of the green space to convert it to parking spots?
Well, that isn't a decision. You know, like these aren't final. So
Yeah,
if you
no, I
say
understand.
to us,
I'm just
we
trying to
only want
understand
X
it.
number of spots, that's what we would apply. And you can certainly go to the city and even ask for a variance, right? Like, so you can have even less parking stalls if this school community decides that. I think that would be great. It's just we've had counselors literally, and Brian's here, it's not Brian. But we've had counselors insist they want extra space for the community. We've had schools where we've had to double the parking.
During the building process for the new school, what's going to happen? What's the plan for green space for the students?
That's a challenge. There would be very limited outside play areas for the students. Having recently gone through a pandemic and staggered recesses, I know that Amy has come up with some really creative solutions to accommodating fewer students outside at one time. So it might be necessary to adopt a different type schedule. One of the other challenges and one of the reasons that we are looking to maximize green space in the playground is there really aren't a whole lot of other options around here. So it's not like we could say, oh, we'll take them to the park down the street, because there isn't one in the area that's bounded by St. Mary's, St. Anne's, and Fermor. We'd have to be crossing either St. Anne's or St. Mary's to get to other green space. So during the construction period, it would be an uncomfortable recess period.
Not really, but you might end up with two reasons.
I would also share that this type of project I mentioned is something we haven't seen in Winnipeg for over 20 years. But this is something that our neighbors just to the west in Saskatchewan have been doing more recently. And certainly there are folks that we can speak to that have lived this experience that we can learn from how they scheduled and how they were able to cope with that challenge.
What is the instruction?
Okay, so that is a good question. Christina?
Typically for a school like this, we expect to see probably about 20 months of construction, 20 to 22 months.
So the children would be without green space at the time, or just not very little.
It really depends on the final plan and how we phase that. So that's where your 3-story, 2-story option comes into play, right? So the larger the footprint, the piles are going down first. So your construction site is a lot larger. But I would assume that depending on the orientation of the floor plan, the 3-story option, the more efficient we can make that floor plan, the better it'll be.
Follow-up related question. So after the construction period is ended, how long will the demolition period be for the existing school?
No, yeah, so the demolition's fairly quick.
Like, couple months?
Yeah, absolutely. So,
No, because there's remediation. You're not right.
actually, that's a good
Because
point.
then you
There
have
is,
to build
yeah,
the green space. Have to come.
right.
In the summer, so we'll get our. The work that needs to be done.
Building comes down very quickly.
Yeah.
Fair,
Just
fair.
to get a rule.
Yeah.
So kind of a follow-up question to that one. So if it's for 20 months to build and then 6 months to demo and remediate, how long, so hypothetically speaking, you get an announcement last next May or the following May, what is the whole process? Like, are our kids moving forward to school?
I can relate to your question because from the time my oldest was in preschool, we heard about the big expansion that was coming to École, and it finally opened after my youngest finished. Perhaps you could speak to that.
Yeah. So typically our design process, like Monica mentioned, that was a really important point, that once the province gives us the go ahead, there's a whole design process involved where we're really going to dig in. We're making big assumptions just to get to this point. So the design process typically takes about a year between the very beginning to when we're tendering this out to contractors. So you're looking at a 3-year process between the day we start and the day we got students.
So if your children are in grades 6, 7, or 8, that ship has sailed already. But younger ones,
Oh, we would love your input anyway, because we've been here the longest.
yes, so the presentation and the designs will all be posted online for you to access.
I'm just curious if the intention is to present options to the provincial government, and part of that presentation is around the cost. Obviously, we wouldn't know exactly, if we have a rough sense at this point to say like, oh, option 1 would be this is expensive, but it's option 3, or we know whatever roughly proportionally to one another. What's the Rolls Royce?
We can't give you a number because that's the next step. None of them are the Rolls Royce. All of them are the thing that we know we can ask for and hope to get you a project. There's 3-story buildings more efficient, right? Like, so, and it gets you the most green space. So our recommendation to you, not that we're meant to make one, don't choose the 2-story building.
Hi, sorry, I'm just trying to understand the timeline a little bit better, because with the pictures, because the students have to be, still have school while construction is going, right? So we're talking minimum a year until the design phase is finished and we're ready to pack ground, potentially. And then 20 months to build the new school. The old school would still be there occupying what will be the green space. At the end of those 20 months, looking at an additional 6 months plus for the demolition of the old school, which then gets turned into the new green space. And then plants get planted in it, right?
So it's closer to 4 years when you add it all together, for sure.
Mr. Patricia said it's closer to 4 years when everything is all full.
What do you think the feasibility is of the province?
Well, that is a good question. What I can share is that school division staff, administration have been in conversation with their peers from the province. So folks that work for capital planning division in the province, and they're interested, they're listening. They haven't said, don't waste your time. So that's encouraging. What also is encouraging is the provincial government has committed to building a number of new schools over the next number of years. I don't want to give you an exact number, but it's something like 20 schools over the next 10 years. Is that about it? Yeah. So we know that they are intending to make investments in school buildings. And what our job will be is to convince them that this project is worthy of funding. Because if the province doesn't fund a new school for us, they will be looking at funding a number of other projects in this building that they will have to fund to keep it operational. Things like, roofs have a life cycle. The roof is going to need to be replaced. The boiler will need to be replaced. It seems like it was just done, but they don't last that long. So all of these different items that were identified in the building condition report would need to be addressed. So we think we've got some pretty strong arguments in favor of this. So ultimately, it will depend on how many requests they're getting, what demands are, what needs are in other parts of the province, and how they choose to respond to them.
Would the various remediations needed to keep the school functional be fairly disturbing to the kids' ongoing education? Like, would it be disruptive day to day?
It depends on the project. I was principal of this building when the boiler was last replaced. It was disruptive. Madam Macro, was it disruptive?
Yes.
Yes.
It was all very cold.
What I can tell you is that it did get very cold at some points, and they did bring in a temporary heating system. And I have to tell you, the students and families were just troopers with this. We sent home a note, and sending the note home, I thought this was maybe a little audacious, but please send your child to school with little gloves that they can use while they're writing. Which I thought people are going to say, what is the deal? And they need to wear gloves inside. Parents sent their kids to school with gloves, and we just persevered through. It was a period of about 6 weeks before spring came, and everyone was comfortable, and for about 2 weeks, and then it got too hot. It was a scheduled boiler replacement that had an emergency, unfortunately, about 2 months before the project was slated to begin.
Typically, you would slate renovation.
Yes, yeah, and even, but a boiler project takes more than the summer.
I
Very-
would
yeah.
try not to do it while kids are cold.
Are there any other questions, folks?
That I'm into taxes, but I'm just wondering how this would expect us to affect it.
Which level of tax? Well, school division taxes are going to be a thing. Am I speaking accurately? Trustee Kevin? The provincial government has been gradually reducing the portion of education funding that is derived from property taxes, and has been limiting school divisions in the amount that they can raise local taxes. And then they limited it for a while and then said, no, you can't. So you will not see local property taxes related to schools increasing. Any increase that you would see would be city property tax increases. Of course, for the provincial government to pay for all of these projects around the province, they do need to fund them. So there, I would assume, be some provincial funds, maybe it would come from taxes or something else. There certainly is a need to pay for these projects.
Just to be clear though, so presumably the remediation cost to fix up this school compared to building a new school, if they're roughly equivalent, we're looking at the same impact on our taxes either way, I would assume. Is that correct?
I don't think any taxes, any tax difference that you experience would be different than what people in Varennes or Thompson or Flint or experience. It will be a province wide effect. Let's see, one last question here.
Are there any kind of like environmental considerations for putting the daycare kids in safe areas of traffic and the maker space and traffic, all those kinds of things? Like, is there any kind of regulation that needs to be adhered to, or is that just like we can decide?
No, you can decide. I mean, you want a fence in a space that you don't want children running out of, right? And most of those options have that. There's a noise consideration, right? Like,
There's definitely a noise consideration. So the options with the daycare away from the street provide you a better noise buffer. But, you know, there's many schools with examples of those spaces on, especially on Ford and Avenue, people drive in some of the older schools, all have those kind of spaces.
Thank you. I will pass it back to you to do some housekeeping. But just before that, I do want to thank you all for coming. Please do engage in the feedback opportunities, and don't hesitate as well to ask questions. We're more than happy to, you can put a question in the feedback, and we will try to answer it for you an upcoming event or in another way.
If I can just chime in, Jeff, just letting everyone know that the options will be available on the website very shortly. I just need to get them uploaded.
Thank you, and I'm sorry to, I didn't think to ask if there were any questions from the online audience.
There were none.
Very good. Well, thank you again, and Amy, thank you for having us.
Thank you all for coming.
Need to provide us comments within the next 2 weeks for us to be able to incorporate them. So don't be shy and don't wait too long. Thanks.
And the plans will be online. So thank you so much. If anybody has a minute to help